Welcome back to the Lawyer Diaries. Today we are talking about something that is very, very interesting to a lot of associates, which is going in house. Can I go in house? We hear that so often. Please send me in house roles. Everybody wants to go in house. And I think there's an episode to be made for another day about why people think in house is so much better and is it really? But today we are going to just talk through the nuts and bolts of can I go in house? When? How do you do that? What does the search look like? Because it is one of the most asked questions that we get. So, to start out, we're going to talk a bit about seniority because we tend to work with lateral associates between the 1 to 5 year range because you are most marketable then, really, even 3 to 5 or like 2 to 4 years now.
Yeah,
Um, but for in house, that's totally different. Really, for in house searches, you need to have at least 5 years minimum. Most of the job postings, I mean, there'll be an occasional posting that's for like someone with 4 years of experience, 3 years of experience. That's super rare. They're really looking for a minimum of 5, sometimes even 8 years of experience because they want an attorney who can bring expertise to their company and just plug and play.
exactly. I mean, I've even seen postings for 10 plus years, and the salary is less than what a first year associate would make at an AmLaw 100 firm. Um, and I would also say that it kind of depends. Like sometimes they'll say 4 years, but then these roles are getting hundreds of applicants. So they end up choosing someone with 6 or more years. So you want to be senior enough to where going in house, you're marketable enough to go in house. And it does take paying your dues at a firm for long enough in order to become marketable.
Yeah. And you might be hearing this and saying, well, I know, so and so who went here and they were only fourth year and so went there. You don't know their situation. Maybe that company was their client. Maybe their parents' best friend is, GC at that company. Maybe it took them a year and a half and like 20 interviews to land that role. You don't know. The reality is like it's very tough and that's very challenging to do when you don't have at least 5 years under your belt.
Exactly. And I think this is something that Beck and I hear a lot is, well, my friend did X, so therefore I believe I can do X. And like Becca said, you don't know what their individual circumstances are. And while it's fantastic for your third year associate corporate friend to have gone in house, you don't know what their pay is. You don't know how many interviews it took for them to get there. You don't know what their personal connections are. Like Becca said, maybe their godfather is a director at that company and had a very strong referral, etc. You never know. And like simply because someone was able to do a move that is pretty challenging does not make it any less rare for it to be something that we see happen in the market.
Yeah. So with that being said, like just putting in your head, okay, I'm gonna have to probably grind it out a few years at a law firm before I'm marketable. What you can do right now is really think about how can I make my practice marketable for an in-house role, right? Think about the kind of role that you really do want at a company. Because again, there's this broad umbrella term, oh, in-house that could be doing a bunch of different things at a bunch of different types of companies, right? But if you really think about like, okay, what kind of company would I like to work for? And like, what kind of role do I want to have? Do I want to do product counseling? Do I want to do, like HR counseling? Um, Thinking about that can really help you figure out what you should be doing today in your practice at a law firm because some groups are more like able the transition to in-house is easier because there's an actual demand for that type of legal expertise.
Exactly. So true. And basically, we get a lot of candidates who are second year um, commercial litigators who tell us, I really want to go in house. And the reality is, for a practice like commercial litigation, it can be far more challenging to go in house than someone who has been a labor and employment attorney for 6 plus years. And that's simply because of need. Certain in house roles, they're just certain practices are just in more demand for in house roles. And it can be challenging because we all know you have to choose your practice when you're generally a 2L summer associate, and you don't really know if you want to go in house at that point. So sometimes people choose commercial litigation because that's what they enjoyed as a summer associate. And then later down the line, they realize, wow, I really want to go in house. It can be a little unfair, but we see a lot of corporate associates going in house. We see employment associates going in house, privacy, and less with commercial litigation.
Yeah, so those are really things that you need to think about. As Erica said, labor and employment is huge because companies want counsel to manage, any issues they have with their employees in-house. Privacy, obviously, any kind of like product counseling. If you're a transactional attorney and you have a little bit of IP experience, licensing, you're able to help them with their contracts. That's super valuable for a company. General commercial litigation experience, unfortunately, not so much. I have seen the rare, in-house opportunity for that type of attorney, but it's rare, and like Erica said, it's so unfortunate because you chose the thing that was most interesting to you, but I think it's tough because you choose that, but then sometimes people choose it and they're still like, "Oh, I'm gonna go in-house," but, like, they don't know that that choice kind of makes that in in-house move later more difficult. So, and I think that's something that you have to think about too. It's like, okay, well, maybe I don't love labor and employment, but I think my life could be a lot better in-house. Like, so then I'm going to sacrifice doing, a kind of work that I don't love so that I can be at a company and have a lifestyle that I do enjoy. And those are just personal considerations to take into account.
Exactly. And with that being said, I think, if you are considering going in house, talk to a lot of in house attorneys. Chances are at your current firm, there's probably a handful of folks who went in house and then went back to a firm. That we see that all the time. And that's because the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I mean, a lot of in house departments are working their attorneys really, really hard. Some of them are working more than they worked when they were at a firm. Their role has significantly shifted. So, talk to enough people, because maybe the problem isn't, oh, I need to go in house in order to be happy practicing law. Maybe the problem is something to do with your current group, something to do with your current firm, etc. And I think that's where like you want to talk to as many people as possible, gather as much information as possible, and talk to a few recruiters because they're going to have a better sense of whether or not you're marketable for in-house or whether it might be a little bit of a waste of time or premature for you to start applying right now. And I mean, I think gathering information is just the best thing you can do at this stage, especially if you're a more junior associate.
Yeah. I will say one more note on the practice area aspect, to not end this on such a gloom and doom note. I will say that there are people who go in house all the time to work for a company in an industry that maybe they're not like the most familiar with. And I think there's an element of applying in house where it's a little bit entrepreneurial. Like you have to pitch yourself. Like you could be a real estate corporate associate, and you're applying for an in house job at like a fashion company regarding, where your responsibilities are going to deal with, contracts and agreements that like you can do even if you haven't done it in that particular domain, and you can sell yourself right for that role and get the role even if don't have fashion experience. Whatever, that's just like a random example to say that like even if your experience isn't totally on point, you can like pitch yourself effectively if you have certain skills, because we all know the training, um at law firms is unparalleled. But, if you're a litigator, you can't say that you can do the contracts if you've never done any kind of deal. Even if, I believe that you are smart and intelligent attorney who could figure it out. That's not really what they're looking for.
Exactly. And that even goes with retools. Like if if your experience isn't exactly in line with what they've asked for, and you can strategically sell yourself and find other things that you've done that are similar or would really help you and give you experience that would still be helpful to the company or, to a different practice group if you're retooling. That is such it that's very, very important when it comes to interviewing. I mean, you just have to be able to sell yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Our last bit of advice on this is that the in house move is a beast of its own. We get a lot of emails saying, hey, please send me in house roles. Like, do you do in house placements? The in-house recruiting scene is totally different than the lateral recruiting scene. Unfortunately, you cannot reach out to a recruiter who emails you about firm roles and say, "Hey, send me a list of the in-house roles." That's normally how it works. If you happen to email us, I can send you a list of resources, but we actually don't do in-house placements. And when you're applying for a lateral search, one recruiter basically has access to all of the firm postings. When you're doing an in-house search, uh, the in-house searches are exclusive to one recruiter. So you'll be working with multiple recruiters for multiple companies, if that makes sense. Did I explain that well?
Exactly. Basically, every role you are applying to for an in-house search, you're working with a different recruiter. So if you apply to 50 roles, chances are, unless it's within the same company, sometimes it might be the same recruiter, sometimes still not.
Yeah. And you can
Uh,
apply direct also for
mhm.
in-house.
Right. You can apply direct. And it should also, I think another important thing is expectations on timeline. Lateraling frequently can take around 3 months during a normal market or like a consistent average market. That can change if the market is slow or if the market's really, really fast. In-house roles, I would say a minimum of 6 months to a year. And you really want to be applying broadly. I mean, these roles get hundreds of applicants at a minimum. So we say all the time with lateral searches, if you're going to a new firm to apply broadly with in house, this is more important than ever. You want to apply as broadly as possible and expect it to be quite a time commitment simply because you're not going to be working with one recruiter who can hold your hand and be your advocate for every single role. You're going to be connecting with a new team of recruiters for every single role. And a lot of it is going to be self applications, writing your own cover letters, etc. And I mean, it can be a longer process.
Yeah. And to be honest, like we say, oh, you're working with multiple recruiters for your in-house search. Like, uh, it's honestly like in my personal experience, I've only gotten like in-house, like pitches from recruiters for in-house roles. Like very rarely. You'll get them, and sometimes you'll even get them to your email. But I think a lot of the process will actually feel more like a traditional job search where you are going on job posting boards like goinhouse.com, LinkedIn jobs, and just looking for roles yourself or networking with people and self applying. Like, unfortunately, the roles aren't going to come to you. That's actually one of the kind of like funny and unique things I think about the lateral law firm process, which is like every day you're bombarded with opportunities. um, and it's not going to be like that.
Exactly. When you're applying laterally for law firms and you use a recruiter, that recruiter presents you with a list. When you are doing an in-house search, you are now finding the jobs yourself. And oftentimes you will only connect with the recruiter who's working on that role once they've reviewed your resume and cover letter and realize that, okay, it might be worth an initial call to get a little bit more information about your background. So you may not even connect with that recruiter until they're interested. And that's because they are bombarded with so many applications and they simply would not have time to connect with every single person who applies. And they are not going to submit, rarely are they going to submit your application on your behalf.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever looked at, I don't know if it's a LinkedIn premium feature, but sometimes you can go on a job and it'll show you how many applicants that day, how many applicants total, and then it'll break it down like, 80% of applicants have a JD, 80% of applicants have experience and whatever. And like, it's actually nuts. It's actually nuts also because putting a job on a job board just makes it so easy to apply. So it's super competitive just to like, emphasize everything we've been saying.
And I think it's also important just to make note that people are successful with in-house searches. Every day I see a new I see a new LinkedIn post about someone saying, I'm going in-house. So I mean, people are successful. It just takes patience, setting yourself up with the right expectations. And it takes some luck. And you have to sell yourself just like you have to in any job search. So
Yeah.
I don't think, we don't want to discourage people, but we just want people to understand that the search looks very different from a traditional lateral search to a new firm. And the roles are very competitive. But for the right candidate, you certainly will be successful. Just be patient, apply broadly, and work on those interviews.
And level set your expectations, guys. I mean, if you're a first or second year and you're like chomping at the bit to go in house, like maybe you'll love in house, but maybe you just don't like practicing, like, or maybe you just don't like your
Right.
firm or your practice group. Like, it really, I would just be wary of going into this career thinking that that's going to be the end all be all. That's my
Exactly.
piece of advice. That's all that we have for today. Again, as always, feel free to drop us a note if you have any questions or if you have any topic ideas that we could discuss for you. Till next time.